The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across Jefferson Street, where cars roll lazily and neighbors chat on porches. But the calm doesn't last. Shouting breaks the quiet, sharp enough to make pedestrians turn their heads. Officer Brent Carver steps into the street, his uniform wrinkled, his jaw clenched. He's had a reputation in this neighborhood for years: short fuse, quick temper, and a smile that never reaches his eyes. Today, he spots what he considers an opportunity. A young black woman crossing the street slowly, one hand resting on the curve of her pregnant belly. "Move it already!" Carver barks, striding toward her. The woman, Naomi Williams, pauses. She's in her third trimester, the summer heat pressing down on her. "I'm moving as fast as I can, officer," she says softly, adjusting the bag in her other hand. Carver sneers, his voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "What's this? Attitude? Don't you know who you're talking to?" Naomi stiffens, her heart racing. She knows encounters like this can spiral in seconds. Her neighbors stop talking, tension pulling the block into silence. Carver steps closer, his face inches from hers. "You people think you own these streets. You think rules don't apply to you." Naomi's eyes widen, but she refuses to lower her gaze. "I haven't broken any rules. I'm just trying to get home." The officer's anger boils over. Without warning, he raises his hand and slaps Naomi across the face, the crack echoing down the street. She stumbles, clutching her belly as gasps erupt around them. "Hey!" a man shouts from a nearby porch, pulling out his phone to record. Others rush closer, voices rising in outrage. Naomi steadies herself, tears springing to her eyes, not just from pain but from the humiliation. She whispers to herself, "Stay calm, protect the baby." Carver puffs out his chest, glaring at the onlookers. "Back off, this is police business." But the crowd isn't backing down. Dozens of phones are raised, capturing every second. Voices overlap, anger, disbelief, calls for justice. Naomi takes a shaky breath, her hand trembling as she holds her cheek. She doesn't want violence, she doesn't want chaos, but she knows this moment won't stay hidden. And within seconds, the sound of tires screeching against asphalt pierces the air. A black SUV speeds into view, brakes squealing as it stops at the curb. The driver's door flies open. Out steps Chief Elijah Williams, the head of the city's police department, and Naomi's husband. He takes in the scene in one glance. His wife, pregnant and shaken, her cheek red from the slap. The crowd furious and filming, and one of his own officers standing smug, still holding his ground. The street holds its breath. Carver blinks, his bravado faltering for the first time. "Chief Williams, sir, I didn't—" Elijah's voice cuts sharper than any shout. "Step away from her, now!" Naomi exhales shakily, relief and rage flooding her all at once. The crowd leans forward, sensing a reckoning. The officer who thought he had control only seconds ago doesn't realize it yet, but his world is about to unravel in front of the entire city. The block is frozen in silence. Dozens of neighbors, still holding their phones aloft, stare at the unfolding scene as if it were a movie. But for Naomi Williams, standing with one hand on her swollen belly and the other pressed against her burning cheek, this isn't fiction, it's her reality. Chief Elijah Williams strides forward, his tall frame casting a shadow over Officer Brent Carver. Every step radiates authority. The SUV door still swings behind him, and the air is thick with anticipation. Carver swallows hard, his earlier bravado slipping. "Chief, I didn't know she was your—" Elijah's voice snaps like thunder. "You didn't need to know. She's a citizen. That should have been enough." The crowd erupts in agreement. "That's right," a woman yells. "We saw it all." Others shout, voices rising like a wave. Naomi steadies herself, her chest heaving. She looks at her husband, relief mingling with fury in her eyes. She's grateful he arrived, but her humiliation lingers. Carver tries again, his words stumbling. "She wasn't moving fast enough. I was just enforcing—" "Enforcing what?" Elijah cuts him off, his eyes blazing. "What law gives you the right to strike a pregnant woman in the middle of the street?" The officer glances at the crowd, realizing every second is being recorded. His excuses collapse under the weight of flashing cameras. He shifts uneasily, sweat dotting his brow. Elijah turns, his voice booming so all can hear. "I want every witness to keep those recordings. Do not delete them. Do not let anyone tell you to hand them over. This department belongs to the people, and tonight you are the proof of what's been happening in plain sight." Cheers ripple through the crowd, the chants of "Justice, justice" growing louder. Naomi wipes at her cheek, her hand trembling. "Elijah," she whispers, her voice barely audible over the noise. He steps to her side instantly, his hand brushing hers gently. "I'm here," he murmurs, his tone softening for her. His eyes scan her face, then lower to her belly. "Are you all right? The baby?" Naomi nods shakily, though her tears betray her. "I'm okay, just shaken." Carver's face twists, desperation clawing at him. "Chief, please, don't let them make this bigger than it is. Elijah spins on him, fury barely contained. "Bigger than it is? You struck my wife, who happens to be carrying my child, in the middle of the street in front of half the neighborhood. This isn't just about me, Carver. This is about every person you thought you could intimidate. And tonight, you're exposed." The officer stumbles back a step, his badge suddenly feeling like a weight dragging him under. Elijah pulls his radio from his belt. His voice is clear, sharp, commanding. "Dispatch, this is Chief Williams. I am ordering the immediate suspension of Officer Brent Carver pending investigation. Have Internal Affairs meet me at headquarters within the hour." The radio crackles with acknowledgement. Gasps ripple through the crowd, followed by cheers. For years, residents had complained about Carver's behavior. Tonight, they watch justice take its first step. Carver's jaw drops. "You can't do this. You need due process." Elijah's stare doesn't waver. "And you'll get it. But until then, you're done." Naomi clings to Elijah's arm, steadying herself. Her voice is stronger now, anger pushing through her fear. "He didn't see me as a mother, Elijah. He saw me as less than human." Elijah's chest tightens. He places his hand gently over hers. "And that's why this ends tonight." The crowd cheers louder, neighbors chanting Naomi's name. Phones flash as reporters rush in, already broadcasting live streams across the city. Elijah raises his voice one last time for the onlookers. "Let this be clear. The badge is not a license to abuse. Anyone who thinks otherwise has no place in my department." The cheers roll like thunder, echoing through the neighborhood. Carver, pale and trembling, stares at the cameras. His career, his shield of arrogance, has crumbled in seconds. And standing before him is not just his chief, but the man whose family he dared to harm. As the SUV doors close and Elijah guides Naomi inside, the crowd erupts again, chanting louder than ever. "Justice for Naomi! Justice for Naomi!" The street that had begun as quiet and ordinary has become a stage for reckoning. And Brent Carver, once feared, is now nothing more than a disgraced man under the crushing weight of his own actions. For Naomi, the pain on her cheek will fade, but the memory will not. And for Elijah, tonight is more than personal. It is the spark of a war against every ounce of corruption hiding in his ranks. Because one officer's arrogance has ignited something larger than himself, and the fight for justice has only just begun. The neighborhood is still buzzing hours after the incident. Videos of Officer Brent Carver slapping Naomi Williams have already gone viral, flooding social media with outrage. Clips of Chief Elijah Williams stepping out of his SUV, fury burning in his eyes, are replayed on every news channel. At the governor's mansion across town, phone lines ring off the hook. Civil rights leaders demand accountability. Community members flood inboxes with messages of support for Naomi. But within Riverton's police union headquarters, a very different tone prevails. Paul Harris, the union president, slams his fist on the table. "The chief can't just humiliate one of our own in public. Carver may have gone too far, but Williams is making this political. He's throwing us under the bus." Several officers nod in agreement, though unease flickers across some faces. They had seen the video too. Carver's slap was undeniable. Still, Harris presses on. "If we don't fight back, this whole department will be gutted." Meanwhile, Naomi sits at home on the couch, a bag of ice pressed gently against her cheek. Her mother sits beside her, stroking her arm, whispering prayers under her breath. Elijah paces the living room, his phone buzzing nonstop. Naomi looks up at him. "You should sit. You haven't stopped moving since we got home." He shakes his head. "I can't sit. Not when I know half the city is watching us, waiting for what comes next." Her voice is soft but firm. "They're not just watching us, Elijah. They're watching you. The way you handle this will decide everything." Elijah stops pacing, his eyes fixed on her. She's right. This is no longer just about one officer. It's about the credibility of his entire department and his own integrity as its leader. The next morning, Elijah holds a press conference. Cameras crowd the steps of police headquarters, microphones stretching like a forest toward him. Naomi, though still shaken, watches from home. "Last night," Elijah begins, his voice steady but fierce, "an officer of this department struck a pregnant woman in broad daylight. That woman happens to be my wife. But let me be clear, this is not about family ties. This is about right and wrong. Officer Brent Carver is suspended pending investigation, and I will personally ensure that every action taken is transparent. No badge gives the right to abuse." The crowd of reporters erupts with questions. One shouts, "Chief Williams, are you biased because the victim is your wife?" Elijah doesn't flinch. "Bias is pretending misconduct doesn't exist. Integrity is holding officers accountable, no matter who they harm. If you're asking whether I'm motivated, yes, I am. Motivated by every citizen who deserves to feel safe on these streets." Naomi feels a swell of pride watching him speak. For years, she had worried the job would force him to choose loyalty to the badge over loyalty to the people. But today, there is no doubt where he stands. Across town, Carver hides in his small apartment, curtains drawn, television blaring with coverage of his disgrace. His phone lights up with messages from allies in the Union promising support, but the hate messages pour in louder, drowning out the few voices defending him. He stares at the screen, jaw tight, muttering, "They won't take me down. Not like this." Back at headquarters, Elijah meets privately with his command staff. Some sit stiffly, uncomfortable with the glare of public scrutiny. Others nod in agreement as he outlines next steps. "We're cooperating fully with the Independent Review Board. Every file, every body cam, every complaint will be turned over. If we don't clean house ourselves, the public will never trust us again." One captain raises a hand nervously. "Sir, with respect, the Union will fight this tooth and nail." Elijah's eyes harden. "Then let them. Our oath wasn't to the Union, it was to the people." That night, Naomi scrolls through messages of support on her phone. Strangers from across the country share their own stories of abuse, thanking her for standing strong. Tears prick her eyes as she whispers to Elijah, "It's not just us. There are so many more." He kneels beside her, taking her hands. "Then this fight is bigger than we thought, and we won't stop until every voice is heard." In Riverton's Union office, Paul Harris fumes as he watches Elijah's press conference replay. "He's turning the people against us. We can't let this stand." One officer mutters, "But what Carver did was wrong. Everyone saw it." Harris slams his fist again. "That doesn't matter. If Williams gets away with this, every one of us is vulnerable. We protect our own." But for the first time, the words ring hollow. Even inside the Union Hall, doubt has begun to spread. Outside, the city hums with tension. Protests grow by the day, voices chanting Naomi's name alongside demands for Carver's firing. The fight is no longer contained to one street or one family. It is spreading, a fire that cannot be ignored. And as Naomi lies in bed that night, Elijah's arm wrapped protectively around her, she knows their lives have been forever changed. The slap on her cheek will fade, but the spark it ignited will only grow. The question is no longer whether justice will come. It's how much the city is willing to sacrifice to see it through. By sunrise, the city of Riverton is divided. On one side, neighborhoods buzz with support for Naomi Williams. Videos of Officer Brent Carver's slap continue to dominate every news cycle, drawing outrage across the nation. On the other, police union spokesmen fan the flames of defense, insisting that Carver's suspension was unfair and politically motivated. Outside police headquarters, two crowds gather, separated by barricades and a thin line of officers. Protesters shout, "Justice for Naomi," while counter-protesters wave flags that read, "Back the Blue." Reporters swarm the sidewalks, capturing every tense exchange. Inside his office, Chief Elijah Williams watches the live feeds on a wall of screens. His jaw is tight, his eyes weary. He has seen protests before, but never with his own family at the center of the storm. Karen Lopez, his deputy chief, steps in holding a file. "Sir, Carver has requested legal counsel. He's threatening to sue the department for wrongful suspension." Elijah exhales slowly. He struck a pregnant woman on camera. Wrongful suspension? He should be grateful he isn't already in a cell. Karen hesitates. "The union will back him no matter what. They're calling for a rally tomorrow. It could get ugly." Elijah closes the file, his tone firm. "Then we'll be ready. I won't let them intimidate the truth out of this city." Meanwhile, Naomi sits in the living room with her mother, scrolling through messages pouring in from across the country. Some are words of support, prayers for her safety. Others are darker, filled with venom. Her mother frowns. "Don't read those, baby. They'll poison your spirit." Naomi shakes her head. "I need to know what people are saying, because this isn't just about me anymore. It's about every woman who was silenced." She presses a hand to her belly, whispering to her unborn child, "You're going to be born into a world that's fighting for better." That evening, Elijah and Naomi appear together for the first time since the incident, sitting side by side in an exclusive interview broadcast nationwide. The studio lights are hot, the camera's unforgiving, but Naomi's voice is steady. "I was terrified," she tells the anchor, "not just for myself, but for my baby. I begged him to let me pass, but he looked at me like I was nothing. And then he hit me. In that moment, I realized it didn't matter who I was. To him, I was just another black woman to put in her place." Elijah takes her hand, his own voice carrying steel. "That's why I suspended him. Because no badge gives you the right to strip someone's humanity. If we can't protect the most vulnerable, then we don't deserve to wear this uniform." The clip goes viral within hours. Hashtags trend. #justice. For Naomi and Hound stand with the chief. Protesters multiply, filling city squares. In a dark bar across town, Carver watches the interview on a cracked television. His hands shake with rage as the anchor describes him as the disgraced officer. He slams his fist against the table. "They're lying. They don't know what it's like on these streets. I'm not the villain." But the room is silent. Even his drinking buddies avoid his eyes. The footage is undeniable. His excuses sound hollow, even to himself. At police headquarters the next morning, Elijah calls a meeting with his command staff. The air is thick with tension. Some officers avoid his gaze, torn between loyalty to the badge and loyalty to the truth. Elijah doesn't mince words. "We cannot serve the people while protecting abusers. Every officer here must choose, stand for justice or stand aside. There will be no middle ground." A few nod firmly, but others shift uncomfortably. The fracture in the department is clear. Outside, the protests swell into the thousands. Signs bearing Naomi's face line the barricades. Chants shake the streets. "No more silence, no more abuse." Reporters jostle for position as the city becomes the center of a national debate. At home, Naomi watches the coverage with a mix of fear and pride. Her cheek still aches, but her spirit burns brighter. "They're not chanting for me anymore," she tells her mother. "They're chanting for everyone." Her mother squeezes her hand. "And you gave them the courage to start." By nightfall, Elijah returns home, exhaustion weighing on his shoulders. Naomi greets him at the door, her eyes searching his. "How bad is it?" He sighs, setting his cap on the table. "Worse before it gets better. The union is doubling down, but the people are louder, and right now, their voices matter more than ever." Naomi rests her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Then we'll get through this, together." Outside, the chants continue long into the night, candles flickering in the hands of protesters. The city is no longer just demanding justice for Naomi Williams. It is demanding a reckoning for every injustice hidden in Riverton's shadows. And Elijah knows this is only the beginning. Because one slap has shaken an entire system, and the fight for change is about to explode. The next morning, Riverton awakens to a city on edge. Streets are clogged with protesters holding handmade signs, some painted with Naomi's face, others with bold demands. "Fire Carver," "End police abuse," "Justice for all." News vans line the avenues, their satellite dishes pointed skyward. Helicopters hover overhead, broadcasting live footage to the nation. Riverton is no longer just a city. It has become the epicenter of a movement. Inside his office, Chief Elijah Williams studies a bank of screens. Each one shows a different angle of the protests. One shows mothers with strollers chanting outside City Hall. Another shows clergy kneeling in prayer outside the courthouse. And another shows angry counter-protesters waving flags chanting, "Back the blue," as tension simmers along the barricades. Karen Lopez steps in, her face tight. "Sir, the union is holding their rally at noon. They're calling it a stand for law and order, but it's a direct challenge to you." Elijah doesn't look up. "Let them rally. The truth doesn't fear opposition." Karen hesitates. "But they're mobilizing officers off duty to march with them. If this gets violent, it could tear the city apart." Finally, Elijah turns, his eyes blazing. If it tears apart, it's because it was already broken. We're just finally seeing the cracks. Meanwhile, Naomi sits in their living room, her cheek still bruised but her spirit unshaken. She scrolls through her phone, messages flooding in, some supportive, some vile. She pauses at a message from a young woman. "I saw your interview. I was harassed by the same officer last year. I never told anyone until now. Thank you for giving me courage." Naomi's eyes well with tears. She whispers, "This is bigger than me." Her mother, sitting beside her, nods. "That's why you have to stay strong. For all of them." At noon, Riverton's downtown square becomes a battlefield of words. On one side, protesters chant Naomi's name, waving signs and demanding justice. On the other, police union loyalists march behind Paul Harris, shouting about betrayal and political witch hunts. Reporters swarm the scene, their cameras capturing the clash of chants. "Justice now" collides with "Protect the badge" in a deafening roar. In the midst of it all, Carver appears. Dressed in civilian clothes but wearing his old badge pinned defiantly to his chest, he steps onto the courthouse steps. Cameras whip toward him instantly. He raises his arms, shouting over the crowd, "I didn't do anything wrong. I was enforcing the law. The chief is using his own wife to destroy this department." Boos erupt from Naomi's supporters, while cheers rise from the union loyalists. The clash nearly drowns out his voice, but the cameras catch every word. Watching from his office, Elijah feels his blood pressure spike. "He's turning it into theater," he mutters. Naomi watches from home, her stomach twisting. She whispers, "He's trying to make me the villain." That evening, Elijah calls another press conference. The room is packed, tension thick in the air. He steps to the podium, his voice steady but sharp. "Officer Brent Carver says he was enforcing the law. Let me be perfectly clear. No law allows the striking of a pregnant woman in the street. No badge excuses violence without cause. And no officer, past or present, will rewrite the truth that the cameras captured for the world to see." The room erupts with questions. A reporter shouts, "Chief Williams, the union accuses you of bias because the victim is your wife. How do you respond?" Elijah meets the reporter's gaze. "My wife's pain is personal, but this fight is not. This is about every citizen who's been silenced, every family that has been told to move on." Last night, a young woman wrote to Naomi, saying she too had been harassed by Carver. How many more stories are out there? How many more families are waiting to be heard? Naomi, watching the broadcast from home, presses a hand to her chest. Pride swells through her, even as fear lingers. Across town, in a dim bar, Carver slams his drink onto the counter, rage burning in his eyes. "He's lying. They're all against me." His words are met with silence from the few patrons nearby. Even here, support is waning. By nightfall, the city is alight with chants and candlelight vigils. Crowds march peacefully through neighborhoods, holding Naomi's name high. On social media, hashtags trend, #Justice for Naomi and #No More Silence. At the mansion, Elijah returns home exhausted. Naomi meets him at the door, her eyes filled with both love and worry. "You're making enemies, Elijah, powerful ones." He pulls her close, resting his forehead against hers. "Then let them come, because for the first time in years, the people aren't afraid. And neither am I." Outside, the chants echo like a drumbeat into the night. "Justice now, justice now." And in Riverton, both sides know the truth. The fight is far from over. The city doesn't sleep that night. Helicopters hum overhead, their searchlights sweeping across Riverton streets. Protesters remain camped outside City Hall, their chants echoing into the early hours of the morning. On the other side of the barricades, Union loyalists refuse to leave either, shouting their own slogans into the night air. At dawn, Elijah Williams sits in his office, tie loosened, coffee untouched on his desk. He hasn't closed his eyes in nearly 24 hours. Karen Lopez enters with a folder stuffed with documents. "Chief, the review board is requesting access to all disciplinary files on Carver and several other officers. They want them by noon." Elijah rubs his forehead, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. "Give them everything. No more hiding." Karen hesitates. "Sir, some of those files implicate people higher up, captains, even lieutenants. This could tear the department apart." Elijah meets her gaze, his eyes steady despite the fatigue. "If tearing it apart is what it takes to rebuild trust, then so be it." Meanwhile, Naomi sits at home with her mother, scrolling through the morning news. Her interview from 2 nights ago continues to spread, But now she's seeing something new. Other women sharing their own stories. Videos, tweets, and handwritten letters flood social media under the hashtag #IamNaomi. She wipes tears from her cheeks, whispering to her mother, "They're speaking because I spoke. It's finally happening." Her mother squeezes her hand. "Your voice lit the fire, Chinna. Now it won't go out." Across town, Carver sits in his apartment surrounded by empty bottles, curtains drawn. His television blares coverage of his disgrace, anchors describing him as the officer who struck a pregnant woman. Each word gnaws at him. He picks up his phone, scrolling through messages from Paul Harris and the Union. "Stand firm. We'll protect you." But even as he reads them, he feels abandoned. By mid-morning, the city square is jammed again. Protesters chant Naomi's name, while counter-protesters brandish signs reading, "Support our cops." Reporters wade through the chaos, microphones raised. Elijah steps outside headquarters, the crowd erupting as he appears. Cameras zoom in, capturing every bead of sweat on his brow. He raises a hand, calling for silence. "I see two crowds here today," he begins, his voice booming across the plaza, one demanding justice and one demanding loyalty to a broken system. But let me remind you, justice and law are not enemies. They are the same. A badge that hides behind abuse dishonors every officer who serves with integrity. The crowd of protesters cheers. The Union loyalists jeer. Suddenly, a bottle arcs through the air, smashing near Elijah's feet. Officers rush to form a barrier, shoving the two sides back. Shouts erupt, tension boiling into chaos. Naomi watches live coverage from home, her hand clutching her belly, fear slicing through her chest. "Elijah," she whispers. In the square, Elijah holds his ground, refusing to retreat behind the barricade. His voice cuts through the din. "If you throw bottles, you're not protecting justice. You're protecting fear, and fear has no place in this city anymore." The words ripple outward, calming some, enraging others. The crowd surges, but the cameras catch it all. Every chant, every confrontation, every sign of resistance. Later that evening, Elijah meets with the mayor and the city council. The room hums with tension, every seat filled with officials split between outrage and caution. The mayor speaks first. "Chief Williams, this city is on fire. Some are praising you as a hero, others say you've betrayed the badge. We need to know, how far are you willing to take this?" Elijah leans forward, his voice firm. "As far as it needs to go. If the cost of truth is division, then we pay it. Because without truth, there is no unity, only silence." The council murmurs, some nodding, others shaking their heads. The battle lines within city leadership mirror those on the streets. At home that night, Naomi waits for Elijah, her nerves raw. When he finally walks through the door, exhausted and bruised by the day, she throws her arms around him. "You can't keep putting yourself in the middle like that. They'll try to break you." He holds her tightly, whispering into her hair, "They already tried, but I'm still standing." She pulls back, eyes blazing with both love and fear. "Then stand for all of us, but promise me you'll come home safe every night." He nods, his expression softening. "I promise." Outside chants still echo through the streets. The city hasn't slept, and it won't until justice is done. And Elijah knows the days ahead will test not just his leadership, but his very survival. Because what started with one slap has grown into a battle for the soul of Riverton. The next morning, Riverton feels like a city under siege. Police barricades remain up from the night before, and the air still carries the acrid sting of smoke from scattered clashes. Downtown, protesters return stronger, their chants echoing between high-rise buildings. "Justice for Naomi, no more silence." Inside the police headquarters, Chief Elijah Williams gathers his command staff around the long oak table. Files and reports litter the surface, each one exposing years of misconduct complaints. Elijah taps one with his finger. "This is Carver's record, dozens of complaints, most marked unfounded, and we all know why." Karen Lopez leans forward, her jaw tight. "Because the Union and Chief Keaton before you buried them. The system protected him." Elijah nods grimly. "And now the system has to answer." A captain clears his throat nervously. "Sir, the rank and file are divided. Some support you, but others say you've betrayed them. They're angry. And angry men with guns are dangerous." Elijah's eyes sweep the room, steady and unflinching. "Let them be angry. If they're angry because I'm demanding accountability, then maybe they don't belong in uniform." The room falls silent. Everyone knows he's right. but the weight of his words lingers. Meanwhile, Naomi sits at home, her cheeks still tender but healing. She watches live coverage on her tablet. Protesters are holding vigils in cities across the country now. Atlanta, Chicago, even Los Angeles. Her name, her face, has become a symbol. Her phone buzzes with another message from a stranger. "Thank you for speaking. I was pregnant when I was harassed by an officer. I thought I was alone. I'm not anymore." Naomi presses a hand to her belly, whispering to her unborn child, "We're changing the world for you." Across town, Officer Brent Carver hides in his apartment, blinds drawn. His world has collapsed. Former colleagues avoid his calls. His neighbors glare when he steps outside. The phone rings again. It's Paul Harris, the union president. "You're not alone, Brent," Harris insists. "We'll fight this. The chief is trying to make an example of you, but we won't let him win." Carver grips the phone tight. "They've already made me the villain. I can't even walk outside without cameras in my face. My career is finished." Harris's tone hardens. "Then you fight back. Don't let them bury you." Carver hangs up, staring at the badge still sitting on his dresser. Once it made him untouchable. Now it feels like a curse. Back at headquarters, Elijah holds a press conference. Cameras flash, microphones crowd the podium. His voice cuts through the noise, firm and deliberate. Yesterday, the Independent Review Board received its first set of files from this department. What they found was disturbing. Years of misconduct swept under the rug. This is not about one officer. This is about a culture that allowed abuse to flourish. That culture ends now. Gasps ripple through the press. Questions fly. "Chief Williams, are you saying Riverton PD has been covering up cases for years?" Elijah meets the reporter's gaze. "Yes, and we are going to expose every single one." The statement sends shockwaves across the city. Protesters cheer wildly, their chants doubling in volume. But inside the Union Hall, Harris slams his fist on the table. "He's destroying us. If he keeps this up, half our officers will be indicted." One officer mutters, "Maybe they should be." The words hang heavy in the room. For the first time, cracks appear even among the Union loyalists. That evening, Elijah returns home. Naomi waits for him on the porch, her eyes filled with both pride and worry. "You're shaking the whole city," she says softly. He steps closer, taking her hand. "It needed to be shaken. But I won't lie, it's dangerous. They'll fight back harder." Naomi squeezes his hand, her voice steady. "Then we fight harder too. We've come too far to stop now." Inside, the children Naomi tutors from the neighborhood drop off handmade cards at her door, drawings of her with a halo, the words "Thank you, Miss Naomi," scrawled in crayon. Tears prick her eyes. "Do you see this, Elijah?" she whispers. "They're watching. They believe in us. We can't let them down." He nods, pulling her close. "We won't." But across town, Carver pours himself another drink, his bitterness festering. On the TV, Elijah's words replay, "That culture ends now." Carver snarls at the screen, "Not if I end you first." His reflection stares back at him in the dark glass, wild-eyed, broken, dangerous. The storm in Riverton is no longer just about policy or reform. It's about survival. And Elijah Williams knows it. The battle has entered its most dangerous stage yet. The city wakes to headlines splashed across every paper and news site. Chief Williams exposes years of cover-ups. Clips of Elijah's press conference dominate the morning shows, anchors dissecting every word. To some, he is a hero dismantling corruption. To others, he is a traitor waging war on his own force. Inside the governor's mansion, Elijah sits with city leaders for an emergency briefing. The mayor, pale and sweating, taps nervously on the table. "Chief, your words have set this city on fire. Protests are bigger than ever. Counter-protests too. If we can't restore order, Riverton could explode." Elijah leans forward, his voice calm but firm. "Order without justice isn't order at all. It's oppression. The people are finally being heard. If we silence them now, we betray them." Councilwoman Ramirez, one of Elijah's few allies, nods. "He's right. We've ignored this too long. The people won't go back to silence." But others shake their heads, fear outweighing principle. Meanwhile, Naomi walks through her neighborhood, escorted by two officers. Despite the bruises fading on her cheek, her presence radiates strength. Neighbors approach her with flowers, letters, even tears. One elderly woman clasps Naomi's hand. "You gave us courage, child. We've been waiting for someone to speak." Naomi swallows hard, her eyes misting. I didn't mean to be a symbol. I just wanted to get home that day. The woman squeezes her hand. That's what makes you powerful. Because you didn't ask for this. They forced it on you. And you turned it into something bigger. By noon, crowds gather outside police headquarters once again. Protesters chant, "No more cover-ups," while counter-protesters yell, "Back the blue!" The tension is combustible, and every camera in the nation is rolling. Inside, Elijah watches the screens. Karen enters with an urgent expression. "Chief, intel says Carver has been meeting privately with ex-officers. Some of them are dangerous. They're blaming you for everything, the indictments, the suspensions, the public shame." "We believe they're plotting something." Elijah's jaw tightens. "Then let's not wait. Issue a warrant for Carver. Bring him in before the city pays the price for his bitterness." Across town, Carver slams the door of his dingy apartment, his pulse racing. He paces, muttering to himself, "They're turning everyone against me. He humiliated me, took everything." His eyes fall on his old service pistol lying on the table. He picks it up, his reflection fractured in the dark mirror. That evening, Elijah prepares for another address, this time directly to the community. The plaza outside City Hall is packed, thousands with candles, signs, and raised fists. Reporters line the barricades, their cameras glowing in the dusk. Naomi watches from the front row, her hand resting protectively on her belly. Elijah steps onto the stage, his voice amplified across the square. "This city is hurting. For too long, complaints were ignored, voices silenced, families broken. That silence ends tonight. We will open every file, investigate every claim, and hold every officer accountable. Justice will not be selective. It will be for all." The crowd erupts, chants rising like thunder. But just as Elijah pauses to continue, a commotion ripples through the side of the plaza. Shouts erupt, officers rush, and the cameras swing. Carver has appeared, shoving through the barricade, his face twisted with rage. In his hand is a gun, glinting under the floodlights. Naomi gasps, clutching her belly, her bodyguard pulling her back. The crowd screams, chaos breaking like a wave. Elijah freezes, his instincts kicking in, but his eyes lock on Carver. Their gazes collide. The disgraced officer and the chief who exposed him, face to face under the nation's watch. Carver's voice cracks as he shouts, "You ruined me. You turned everyone against me." Elijah steps forward, ignoring the shouts of his security detail. His voice cuts through the chaos. "No, Carver, you ruined yourself. The cameras didn't make you strike my wife. You did. The files didn't make you abuse your badge. You did. And now the world sees you for what you are." Carver's hand trembles on the pistol. The crowd holds its breath, millions watching live. Officers tighten their aim, ready to fire. Elijah takes another step, his voice steady. "It's over. Put the gun down. Face the truth for once in your life." Naomi watches, her heart pounding, tears streaming down her face. She whispers, "Please, Elijah, come back to me." For a moment, Carver falters. His hand shakes violently, sweat dripping down his temple. The chants from the crowd shift. "Justice now! Justice now!" And then, Carver roars, throwing the gun to the ground. Officers swarm him instantly, tackling him to the pavement. Cameras zoom in as his wrists are cuffed, the same way he once cuffed countless others. The crowd explodes in cheers, their chants echoing into the night. "Justice for Naomi! Justice for all!" Elijah exhales, relief flooding through him as he looks at Naomi. She nods, tears shining in her eyes. Tonight, a battle ended, but Elijah knows the war for justice is far from over. Still, for the first time, the city believes change is possible. The image of Brent Carver tackled to the ground, handcuffed in front of thousands, races across every television screen and social media feed in America. News anchors call it the moment Riverton changed. Protesters celebrate, their chants echoing into the night. But beneath the cheers, tension lingers. At home, Naomi sits on the couch, exhaustion pulling at her body. Her hand rests on her belly as Elijah kneels beside her, his arm draped protectively around her shoulders. She whispers, "It's over, isn't it?" Elijah exhales slowly, brushing his thumb across her hand. Carver is finished. But what he represents, the system that protected him, that fight isn't over. Naomi leans her head against his shoulder. "Then promise me we won't stop until it is." The next morning, Riverton awakens to a new reality. Crowds gather outside the courthouse as Carver is arraigned, his face pale, his once cocky demeanor gone. Protesters chant, "No more cover-ups," while counter-protesters, fewer but louder, wave their signs in defiance. Inside the courthouse, reporters swarm as Elijah enters to give a statement. Cameras flash, microphones thrust forward. His voice is calm, measured, but resolute. Brent Carver's arrest is not the end. It is the beginning. Every complaint buried, every voice silenced will be brought to light. Riverton will no longer be a city where badges hide abuse. The crowd outside erupts, cheering, but in the shadows of the Union Hall, Paul Harris fumes. He slams the table with his fist. He's dismantling everything. First Carver, now Keaton and Landers under indictment. If we don't stop him, this whole department will fall apart. One officer mutters under his breath, "Maybe it should." The words sting like betrayal. Harris glares, but he knows the cracks are widening. Loyalty is no longer guaranteed. That evening, Elijah meets with the review board. Claire Thompson lays out stacks of files across the long table. "Chief, we've uncovered evidence of systemic cover-ups going back over a decade. Dozens of officers falsified reports. Internal Affairs was complicit, and Carver wasn't alone. He was one of many." Elijah's jaw tightens. "Then we expose them all, one by one if we have to." Karen Lopez leans in. "Be prepared. Once these names go public, the backlash will be worse than anything we've seen. They'll call you a traitor. They'll threaten your life." Elijah's eyes blaze with conviction. "Then let them. The truth is worth it." Meanwhile, Naomi sits at home scrolling through messages. Hundreds pour in under the hashtag #IamNaomi. Women share stories of abuse, harassment, humiliation, some decades old, others frighteningly recent. Naomi feels her chest tighten as she reads them, but pride swells too. Her mother watches quietly, then whispers, "You gave them the courage to speak." Naomi wipes away a tear. "Then I'll carry that courage for them." Across town, Carver sits in a holding cell, his head in his hands. The walls feel like they're closing in. His lawyer leans down, whispering urgently, "The union is trying to spin this. They'll argue you were following procedure, that the chief acted out of bias because it was his wife." Carver lifts his head, eyes hollow. No one believes that anymore, not after the videos. For the first time, the weight of his own actions crashes down on him. He isn't untouchable. He isn't shielded. He is just another man in chains. Back at the governor's mansion, Elijah tucks Naomi into bed, exhaustion dragging at both of them. She whispers, "I thought I'd be relieved when he was arrested, but it still feels unfinished." Elijah nods, his voice low. "Because it is. Carver is just one man. The real fight is against everything that let him get this far." Naomi's eyes glisten. "Then we finish it." The next day, Elijah addresses the city again, this time flanked by community leaders and families of past victims. The press room is packed, tension thick. He holds up a file. "This is just one complaint buried for years," he says, opening it. A mother who begged for justice after her son was beaten during a traffic stop. It was dismissed as unfounded. But the evidence proves otherwise. This file, and dozens more like it, will see the light of day. Gasps ripple through the room. Reporters scribble furiously, cameras flashing. Families in the crowd weep, finally seeing their pain acknowledged. Outside, the chants rise again, louder than ever. "Justice for all! Justice for all!" But in the dark corners of Riverton, hatred simmers. Harris and his loyalists whisper about ways to strike back. And though Carver is behind bars, his bitterness spreads among those who see accountability as betrayal. That night, Elijah stands on the balcony with Naomi. The city glows beneath them, chants still echoing faintly in the distance. Naomi leans into him, whispering, "Do you hear them? They believe again." Elijah nods, his arm wrapping around her. "And we can't let them down. Because even with Carver in chains, the battle is far from won. And Elijah Williams knows the hardest fight is still to come." The courthouse steps are crowded again the next morning. Reporters jostle for position, cameras clicking as if every second might be history. Carver's preliminary hearing has drawn a larger crowd than anyone expected. Protesters chant, "Justice for Naomi," while counter-protesters, fewer but loud, yell, "Back the blue!" The clash of voices rises into the gray morning sky. Inside, Naomi sits quietly in the front row, her mother at her side. She had debated whether to come, but in the end, she refused to hide. Her presence is a statement that she will not be silenced, not by shame, not by fear. Elijah enters moments later, his uniform pressed, his posture rigid with resolve. As he takes his seat beside Naomi, the room buzzes with whispers. Everyone knows the symbolism. The chief of police standing publicly against one of his own. Carver is led in, shackled, his once proud shoulders hunched. The cameras flash mercilessly as he shuffles to the defense table. For the first time, Naomi sees him not as a towering figure of authority, but as a man cornered by his own choices. The judge calls the room to order. Lawyers argue. Carver's defense insists the chief acted out of bias, that the slap was an unfortunate misunderstanding. The prosecutor counters with video evidence, community testimony, and a string of complaints ignored for years. Naomi's hand tightens around Elijah's. Every time the video plays on the court monitors, every time she hears the sickening crack of Carver's hand against her face, her stomach knots. But she doesn't look away. When the judge denies bail, the crowd outside erupts in cheers that shake the walls. Reporters rush to broadcast the news. Carver to remain in custody pending trial. Elijah steps outside with Naomi, the roar of the crowd hitting them like a wave. Microphones thrust forward, reporters shouting questions. Elijah raises a hand. "This case is not about vengeance," he says, his voice carrying. "It is about accountability. And accountability doesn't stop here. Every officer, every file, every case hidden in the dark will face the same light." The protesters cheer, their chants swelling. No more silence, no more abuse. Across town, however, Paul Harris fumes inside the Union Hall. His loyalists gather around, tension thick. "They've humiliated one of our own in court," Harris growls. "And Williams is feeding the mob. If we don't strike back, every officer will be thrown to the wolves." A younger officer hesitates. "But Carver was guilty. Everyone saw it." Harris slams his fist against the table. "That doesn't matter. If they can take him down, they can take any of us down. We protect our own." The room falls silent, loyalty clashing with conscience. That evening, Elijah meets with Claire Thompson and the review board. Piles of files cover the table, each stamped unfounded or closed. Claire slides one toward him. "This is from 2018, a teenager beaten during a stop. Evidence buried. We've found dozens more like it." Elijah flips through the pages, fury simmering beneath his calm exterior. "Then we reopen every single one. We can't rebuild trust until the truth is told." Karen Lopez nods, though her face is grim. "Chief, the union won't take this quietly. You've already seen how far they'll go. Some are whispering about walkouts. Others are talking about retaliation." Elijah's voice is steady. "If accountability scares them, then maybe they never belonged behind the badge." Meanwhile, Naomi sits at home scrolling through the flood of messages. One stands out. A mother writing about her son, beaten by officers years ago. "No one believed me. Watching you stand strong gives me hope." Naomi's eyes blur with tears. She whispers, "It's not just my fight anymore. It's all of ours." Later that night, Elijah returns home. He finds Naomi on the porch, her hand resting protectively on her belly. She looks up at him, eyes fierce. "The whole country is watching now. You can't stop." He kneels beside her, taking her hand gently. "I won't. But it's not just me anymore. It's us. It's every voice rising together." In the shadows of Riverton, however, danger brews. Carver's arrest has emboldened some but enraged others. In dim backrooms, whispers grow louder. Elijah has betrayed the badge, betrayed the brotherhood, and betrayal in their eyes demands punishment. But in the heart of the city, candles light the night as protesters march peacefully, their chants echoing through the streets. Children sit on their parents' shoulders, holding signs that read, "Justice for Naomi and a new Riverton." Elijah watches from the balcony of the mansion, Naomi at his side. For the first time in weeks, hope feels tangible, almost within reach, yet he knows the storm is not over. Carver may be in chains, but the system that protected him still fights in the shadows. And Elijah Williams, standing against it all, steels himself for the battles still to come. Because this isn't just about Naomi anymore. It's about a city deciding who it will be. The streets of Riverton hum with tension even after the courthouse ruling. To many, Carver's bail denial is a victory. To others, it is a rallying cry. Police union banners drape across buildings downtown, their slogans plastered on posters, "Protect our own" and "Williams must go." Inside police headquarters, Elijah convenes another strategy session. Karen Lopez, her face tight with fatigue, lays out the latest intelligence. "Chief, the union is planning a massive march tomorrow. Off-duty officers are expected to flood the streets. They're framing it as a defense of law and order, But make no mistake, it's a show of force against you. Elijah leans back in his chair, his jaw set. Let them march. The badge doesn't shield corruption anymore. Claire Thompson from the review board interrupts, sliding a thick file onto the table. Chief, this is more than a protest. We've uncovered communications between union leaders and city officials. They knew about the complaints. They buried them together. If this gets out, the entire city government could collapse. The room falls silent. Elijah's eyes scan the file, each page a new revelation of betrayal. Then it comes out, he says finally. The people deserve to know who failed them. Meanwhile, Naomi walks slowly through her neighborhood with her mother at her side. Children run up to her, handing her handmade drawings, pictures of her with a crown, the words "Strong Mama" scrawled in crayons. She kneels to hug them, tears stinging her eyes. You're our hero, one little girl whispers. Naomi smiles through her tears. No, sweetie, I'm just one voice, but together we're strong. Her mother watches, pride swelling in her chest. She whispers, you were meant for this, Naomi, even if you didn't ask for it. That evening, Elijah and Naomi appear together at a televised town hall. The stage is packed with community members, activists, clergy, and families of past victims. Reporters fill the back rows, cameras trained on every expression. The moderator begins. Chief Williams, Mrs. Williams, thank you for joining us. Tonight, the people of Riverton have questions. A young man steps to the microphone first. His voice shakes. My brother was beaten by officers 3 years ago. We filed a complaint, but nothing happened. Do you really think things will change? Elijah leans forward, his voice steady. Yes, because now the silence is broken. Your brother's story matters. Every buried complaint will see the light. This time, we won't look away. The room erupts in applause. Naomi takes the microphone next. I was humiliated in the street, carrying my child, but I realized something. My pain is shared. It belongs to every mother, every family who was told to stay quiet. I won't stay quiet anymore, and neither should you. The crowd rises to its feet, chanting her name. Cameras capture every second, the footage spreading across the country within hours. But not everyone watching is inspired. In a dimly lit bar, Paul Harris seethes as the broadcast plays. He mutters to his inner circle, they're making saints out of them while they destroy us. If we don't take Williams down, he'll dismantle everything. One man leans forward, his tone dark. So what do we do? Harris's eyes narrow. We remind him there are consequences. If he thinks he's untouchable, it's time he learns otherwise. The next morning, Naomi wakes to the sound of Elijah pacing. He's already in uniform, his eyes heavy with worry. She sits up, her hand resting on her belly. What is it? Threats, he admits. Dozens of them. Some detailed, some vague, but all pointing in the same direction. They want me gone. Naomi swallows hard, fear pressing down on her chest. Then promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll come home. Elijah kneels by the bed, taking her hand gently. I promise, but I can't stop now. The people are counting on us. She nods, her eyes glistening with tears. Then we face it together. Later that day, Elijah addresses the department. Dozens of officers stand in the briefing room, their faces a mix of loyalty and resentment. He speaks without notes, his voice resonant. I know some of you feel betrayed, but understand this. Accountability is not betrayal. Covering up abuse is betrayal. Silence is betrayal. We swore an oath to protect and serve. That oath does not disappear when it's inconvenient. If you stand with justice, you stand with me. If not, step aside. The room buzzes with murmurs. Some nod firmly, others glare. The divide is undeniable. Outside, thousands gather for the Union March. Off-duty officers in uniform stand shoulder to shoulder, chanting slogans. Protesters counter them across the barricades, their own chants rising. The air is thick with tension, ready to ignite. From his office window, Elijah watches, his hands clasped behind his back. This city is standing at the edge, he mutters. Naomi, watching from home, whispers to herself, and we'll decide which way it falls. Because Riverton is no longer just fighting over one officer, it is fighting for its soul. The day of the Union March dawns gray and heavy, clouds hanging low over Riverton like a warning. By mid-morning, downtown is a sea of uniforms. Off-duty officers march shoulder to shoulder, their chants echoing off the glass towers. Protect the badge! Williams must go! Across the barricades, thousands of protesters answer back with their own thunder. Justice for Naomi! No more silence! The chants crash together in the air, a war of words fought with lungs and drums. Helicopters circle above, cameras capturing every angle. National networks cut into regular programming, anchors narrating in tense voices. Riverton becomes ground zero in the fight over police accountability. Inside headquarters, Elijah Williams watches the live feeds, his jaw tight. Karen Lopez stands beside him, her voice low. "Chief, this is unprecedented. Half the department out there marching against you. The city's never seen anything like it." Elijah doesn't look away from the screens. "Good. Let the people see where their loyalties lie." Meanwhile, Naomi sits at home with her mother, television flickering in the background. Her hands rest protectively on her belly as she listens to the chants. Every time her name rings out from the protesters, her chest tightens. She whispers, "I never wanted this, but maybe this is what was meant to be." Her mother takes her hand gently. "Sometimes God chooses the unwilling, child. You didn't ask to be a symbol, but you became one because you stood tall." By noon, the two crowds swell so large that the barricades groan under the pressure. Officers in riot gear stand tense between them, shields raised. The chants turn to shouts, the shouts to shoves. Then, a bottle sails through the air, shattering on the pavement. Chaos erupts. Protesters surge. Counter-protesters push back, fists flying. Tear gas canisters arc through the air, smoke billowing across the square. Screams pierce the chaos as cameras broadcast every second live to the nation. Inside headquarters, Elijah slams his fist against the table. "Damn it, this is exactly what they wanted." Karen snaps, "Chief, you need to address the crowd. If you don't, this city will burn." Elijah strides toward the exit, ignoring security's protests. "Then let's go." Minutes later, he emerges onto the courthouse steps, his voice booming through a megaphone. "Stop this, everyone! Stop!" The crowd falters as cameras whip toward him. His uniform gleams under the harsh light, his presence commanding. "You march for justice, you march for the badge, fine. But if you throw fists and bottles, you dishonor both. This city will not tear itself apart today, not while I stand here." The chants subside, the tension crackling but slowly easing. Protesters lower their fists, counter-protesters back away. The smoke lingers, but the violence halts. Naomi watches from home, tears streaming down her cheeks. "He walked right into the fire," she whispers. Her mother nods softly. "And he put it out with his voice." By evening, the square is calmer, though the scars of the clash remain. Broken glass, discarded signs, scorch marks from smoke grenades. Reporters swarm Elijah as he walks back inside. One shouts, "Chief Williams, have you lost control of your own department?" Elijah stops, his gaze piercing. Control isn't forcing silence. Control is earning trust, and that's what we're doing. The clip airs on every network, analysts debating his words late into the night. But inside the Union Hall, Paul Harris fumes. "He humiliated us again, on live TV. If we don't act, we're finished." A loyalist growls, "What are you suggesting?" Harris's eyes narrow. "If we can't beat him in the streets or the press, then maybe we beat him another way." Quietly. The room falls silent, the implication hanging heavy in the smoky air. Back at the mansion, Elijah returns home exhausted. Naomi meets him at the door, relief flooding her face. She throws her arms around him, whispering, "Don't you ever scare me like that again." He holds her close, his voice low. "I had to. If I let them destroy the city, everything we fought for would die with it." She pulls back, her eyes fierce. "Then promise me you'll come home every night, no matter what." Elijah cups her face gently. "I promise, but I can't promise it will be easy." Later, as the city quiets under curfew, Elijah stands at the window, watching the glow of distant fires. He knows Riverton is at a breaking point. The people are louder than ever, the union more desperate, and the system itself trembling. And though he saved the city from burning today, tomorrow's fight will be harder. Because Riverton is no longer just a city in conflict. It is a city deciding whether justice will finally reign or whether silence will return. The morning after the march, Riverton feels like it's holding its breath. Storefronts are boarded up, graffiti sprawls across walls, and the streets smell faintly of smoke. News anchors replay the clashes again and again, while analysts argue over what it all means. Was it a sign of a city awakening, or a city on the verge of collapse? Inside police headquarters, Elijah Williams sits with Karen Lopez and Claire Thompson. A map of Riverton lies across the table, dotted with red circles marking last night's flashpoints. Karen's voice is sharp. "Chief, the union is calling the march a success. They say it proves you've lost control of the department." Elijah shakes his head, his voice calm but firm. "Control isn't about force, it's about trust. And after what we saw, the people trust us more than them." Claire flips open a file, sliding it toward Elijah. "We've uncovered more. Dozens of buried complaints from the past decade. Officers falsified reports, intimidated witnesses, covered up evidence. It's not just Carver, it's systemic." Elijah scans the pages, his jaw tightening. "Then we make it public, all of it." Karen hesitates. "If you do, you'll be declaring war on your own house. The backlash will be brutal." Elijah looks up, his eyes burning with resolve. "Then let it be war, because the people deserve the truth." Meanwhile, Naomi walks through her neighborhood, escorted by volunteers who have begun calling themselves her community guard. Women line up to hug her, to whisper their thanks. One mother clutches Naomi's hand tightly. "I saw what he did to you. My daughter went through the same thing 2 years ago. No one believed her. But now people believe." Naomi feels tears sting her eyes. "Your daughter matters. You matter. And we're not going to let silence win anymore." By midday, Elijah stands before the press again. Cameras swarm, reporters jostling for position. He holds a thick folder aloft. "These are complaints buried for years," he declares. "Dozens of cases ignored, voices silenced, families dismissed. Today, that silence ends. We are reopening every single one." Gasps ripple through the room. Reporters shout questions. Flashes blind the podium. Families watching on television weep openly as they hear their stories acknowledged for the first time. Outside, protesters cheer wildly, their chants shaking the city. No more silence, no more abuse. But in the Union Hall, Paul Harris slams his fist against the table. "He's gutting us alive. If these files go public, half our officers could face charges. We can't let this stand." A younger officer shifts uncomfortably. "Maybe that's the point. Maybe the ones who abused their power shouldn't have been here in the first place." The room falls into tense silence. The cracks inside the union are widening, and Harris knows it. That evening, Elijah returns home to find Naomi waiting on the porch. She holds out her phone, her eyes wide. "Look at this." On the screen are clips of families across the country holding vigils, chanting "Justice for Naomi" and "We stand with Riverton." What began as one neighborhood's outrage has become a national movement. Elijah takes the phone, his chest tightening with both pride and responsibility. "This isn't just our fight anymore, it's everyone's." Naomi steps closer, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Then we can't stop, no matter how hard they come at us." Across town, Carver sits in his jail cell, staring blankly at the ceiling. His lawyer leans in, whispering through the bars. "The union is planning to push your case as an example. They'll argue you were sacrificed to protect the chief's reputation." Carver mutters bitterly, "They can try, but the world saw what I did. They won't forget." For the first time, reality sinks in. The badge that once protected him has become the evidence that condemns him. That night, Elijah gathers his senior staff for one last briefing. He looks around the room, his voice low but unyielding. "This is the turning point. Once these files go public, there's no going back. The city will either rise or collapse. But we have no choice. The truth must come out." Karen nods, though her expression is grim. "Then let's prepare for the storm." Meanwhile, Naomi lies awake in bed, one hand on her belly, listening to the muffled hum of chants still echoing outside. She whispers to her unborn child, "You'll be born into a world where people fought for what's right. We'll make sure of it." Elijah returns late, slipping quietly into the room. Naomi turns to him, her eyes searching. "Did we do the right thing today?" He nods, exhaustion heavy in his voice. "The only thing we could." They lie together in silence, the weight of the city pressing down on them both. Outside, candles flicker in the hands of protesters who refuse to go home. Riverton stands on the edge of transformation. And tomorrow, when the files go public, the city will face its reckoning. The next morning, Riverton wakes to a storm of headlines. Buried complaints released. Riverton PD under fire. Every major outlet runs the story, citing files Elijah and the review board made public. Cases long ignored are splashed across front pages. Beatings, wrongful arrests, intimidation, threats. For years, families had been silenced. Now their voices roar across the nation. At City Hall, crowds gather with candles and signs. Mothers hold up photos of sons and daughters whose cases had been dismissed. "They called my boy a liar," one woman cries to a reporter. "But the files prove it. They knew all along." Inside headquarters, Elijah faces his command staff. The tension is suffocating. Karen Lopez spreads the morning papers across the table. "Chief, you've lit a fire. Families are celebrating, but the union is furious. Officers are threatening walkouts. Some are demanding your resignation." Elijah stands tall, his voice unyielding. "If the cost of truth is my resignation, so be it. But I won't apologize for exposing corruption." A younger officer speaks up from the corner. "Sir, some of us joined this department to serve, not to cover up. We stand with you." The room buzzes, the divide clearer than ever. Some glare at the young officer. Others nod subtly, courage flickering in their eyes. Meanwhile, Naomi watches from home as news channels play clip after clip of families reacting to the files. Her phone vibrates constantly with messages, strangers thanking her, women sharing stories, mothers weeping with relief. She whispers to her mother, "This isn't just Riverton anymore, it's everywhere." Her mother nods. "And you, child, you're the reason they found their voice." By afternoon, national leaders begin weighing in. Senators demand investigations. Civil rights groups announce marches in solidarity. Riverton, once an overlooked city, is now the heartbeat of a national movement. But not everyone celebrates. In the Union Hall, Paul Harris slams his fist against the table. "He's burning us alive! Those files will destroy careers, families, everything we built!" A loyalist growls, "So what's the plan?" Harris's voice drops to a dangerous whisper. "We stop him. If Williams thinks he can play hero forever, he's wrong. He's just a man. And men can be broken." Across town, Elijah prepares for another press conference. Naomi insists on standing by his side. Her cheek has healed, but her presence is more powerful than any speech. Together they face the cameras. Elijah begins, his voice steady. "Yesterday, Riverton saw the truth. Today, we begin the work of rebuilding. Every file will be investigated. Every victim will be heard. And let this be clear, the badge is not a shield for abuse. It is a promise of protection. That promise will be kept." Naomi steps to the microphone, her voice strong, though her hands tremble slightly. "I was struck in the street, pregnant, humiliated, but I refused to stay silent, and now, because of that, families who thought they were forgotten are being heard. This fight isn't just mine, it's ours." The crowd erupts in cheers, chants of "Justice for Naomi, justice for all," filling the square. That evening, Elijah returns to headquarters. Claire Thompson meets him with a grim look. "Chief, threats against you are escalating. We've intercepted messages, Union loyalists talking about targeting you directly. We can protect you, but you need to be cautious." Elijah shakes his head. "I won't hide. If I retreat now, they win." Claire leans closer, her voice low. "This isn't about politics anymore. This is about your life and your family's." Elijah pauses, the weight of her words sinking in. At home, Naomi senses the danger too. She clutches his hand tightly on the porch that night, her voice trembling. "Promise me you won't let them take you from us. Promise me the truth won't cost your life." Elijah presses his forehead to hers, whispering, "I promise, but if we don't fight now, our child will grow up in the same broken system. I can't let that happen." She nods, tears streaking her face. "Then we fight, together." Meanwhile, in a dingy back room across town, Carver sits in his jail cell stewing. Word of the released files has spread through the prison like wildfire. Other inmates jeer at him, calling him the face of corruption. His bitterness grows, festering like an open wound. And in the Union Hall, Harris finalizes his plan. "If Williams won't step down, we'll force him down. He's made himself the enemy. Now we make him pay." The city sleeps uneasily that night, candles flickering at vigils, chants echoing faintly in the distance. Naomi drifts into restless dreams, Elijah awake beside her, staring at the ceiling, his mind heavy with what's to come. Because he knows the truth. The storm hasn't ended, it's only gathering strength, and Riverton is heading for its most dangerous reckoning yet. Morning sunlight pours through the blinds of the Williams home, but neither Elijah nor Naomi feels its warmth. The city is restless. The files released yesterday dominate every screen, every conversation, every corner of Riverton. Elijah sits at the kitchen table, sipping cold coffee, his uniform jacket slung over the chair. Naomi, still in her robe, scrolls through her phone. "They're calling you the bravest chief in America," she says softly, "but also the most hated." Elijah exhales, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Both can be true. Depends on who you ask. Naomi sets the phone down, her eyes steady on him. "Then don't forget who you're fighting for. The families cheering in the streets, not the ones plotting in the shadows." He nods, her words grounding him. Across town, Paul Harris huddles with his loyalists in the Union Hall. The mood is darker than ever. Harris slams his palm against the table. "He humiliated us. He released files that should have stayed buried. If Williams keeps going, every skeleton in our closet will be dragged into the light." One officer leans in. "Then what do we do?" Harris's eyes narrow. "We remind him he's just a man. Men can be intimidated. Men can bleed." Whispers ripple through the room. Some look uneasy, others nod grimly. The line between protest and conspiracy is blurring. Meanwhile, at headquarters, Elijah briefs his staff. Karen Lopez reads out the latest reports. "Chief, threats are escalating. Anonymous calls, emails, flyers with your face crossed out. We've increased security at your home, but—" Elijah interrupts, his tone sharp. "I won't hide behind fences. If they want to threaten me, let them. I'll keep walking these streets." Claire Thompson interjects, her voice firm. "With respect, Chief, this isn't about your pride. It's about survival. If you fall, the movement falls with you." Elijah doesn't respond. His silence is answer enough. That evening, Elijah appears at a candlelight vigil downtown. Thousands gather, holding photos of loved ones whose complaints were buried. Naomi joins him, her hand resting protectively on her belly. Elijah steps to the microphone, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. "Last night, I read a file about a young man beaten so badly during a traffic stop that he never walked again. His complaint was dismissed as unfounded. The system failed him, just like it failed so many others. That failure ends now." Naomi takes the microphone next. Her voice trembles at first, but then grows stronger. "When I was slapped in the street, I thought I was alone, but I wasn't. None of us are. Your pain is my pain, and together, we're stronger than their silence." The crowd erupts in cheers, chants of "justice for all," rolling through the night like thunder. But in the shadows, Harris watches from afar, his face twisted in rage. He mutters to himself, "They think they've won. They have no idea what's coming." Later at home, Elijah tucks Naomi into bed. She studies his face, lines etched deeper by the weight of the day. "You're carrying the whole city on your shoulders," she whispers. He brushes her hair back gently. "Not just me, us, every voice out there, every family demanding change." She grips his hand tightly. "Then don't let them break you." Across town, Carver sits in his cell, seething as he watches coverage of the vigil on a small television. The sight of Elijah and Naomi celebrated as heroes makes his stomach churn. He mutters under his breath, "He destroyed me, took everything, and they cheer for him." His bitterness festers, feeding the darkness already circling in Riverton. Back at headquarters, Karen hands Elijah another stack of files late into the night. "Chief, these are fresh complaints flooding in since the files went public. People are finally speaking. We've got hundreds already." Elijah flips through the pages, his eyes burning with resolve. "Then we keep listening. Every voice matters. Every truth will be heard." But Claire warns, her voice low. "The more voices rise, the more desperate the union becomes. They won't sit still. They're planning something bigger." Elijah meets her gaze, steady and unflinching. "Then let them come. Because we're not backing down." Outside, chants still echo in the streets as candles flicker against the dark. Riverton is no longer asleep. It is wide awake, its people demanding change. And Elijah Williams knows the fight has entered its most dangerous chapter yet. Because when the truth rises, those who built their power on lies will stop at nothing to crush it. Riverton is restless. Every block feels charged, as if the whole city is holding its breath before a storm. The release of files has shaken faith in the police department to its core. Families of victims are finally being heard, but the backlash from the union is louder and more dangerous than ever. At the Williams home, Elijah sits at the dining table surrounded by folders. The clock ticks past midnight, but he refuses to stop reading. Naomi appears in the doorway, her robe wrapped around her, her belly visible in the soft light. "You haven't slept in days," she says gently. Elijah looks up, exhaustion in his eyes but determination in his voice. If I sleep, the silence wins. These files, they're not just paperwork, they're lives. People who were ignored, buried. I owe them this. Naomi walks over, resting a hand on his shoulder. You owe us rest too. Me, the baby. If they take you from us, what good will the fight be then? He covers her hand with his own. I'll be careful, I promise, but I can't stop now. We're too close. Across town, Paul Harris gathers with his most loyal followers in the Union Hall. The room is thick with smoke and anger. Williams has painted us as villains, Harris growls, and the people are buying it. If we don't act soon, we lose everything. One man leans forward. So what's the plan? Harris's eyes narrow. We make him pay. He thinks he's untouchable, standing with his wife in front of cameras. We'll remind him he's just a man, and men can bleed. The room falls silent. Some look uneasy, others nod grimly. The line between protest and conspiracy has disappeared. The next morning, Elijah arrives at headquarters to find Karen Lopez waiting with urgent news. Chief, we've intercepted chatter. Threats against you are multiplying. Some are credible. Harris's group is talking about moving beyond protests. Elijah straightens, his face calm but resolute. Then we stay vigilant, but we won't back down. Karen presses harder. This isn't just about you anymore. It's about Naomi too. She's become a target. The words slice through him like glass. For a moment, Elijah says nothing, his jaw tightening. Finally, he nods. Increase security at the house. Double it if you have to. But Naomi won't be silenced either. Meanwhile, Naomi spends her morning meeting with community leaders at a local church. The pews are packed with mothers, fathers, children, all there to share their stories. One by one, they stand and speak of beatings, harassment, humiliation. Naomi listens, tears streaking her face, her heart heavy but steady. When it's her turn to speak, she rises slowly, her hand on her belly. I was slapped in the street in front of my neighbors carrying my child. I thought I was alone. But I wasn't, and neither are you. We are stronger together. They can threaten us, they can smear us, but they cannot silence us. The church erupts in applause, chants echoing through the wooden rafters. We are not alone! We are not alone! That night, Elijah sits with Naomi on the porch, the summer air thick and heavy. He watches the security SUVs idling outside, their lights glowing faintly. They're circling closer, he murmurs. Naomi leans against him, her voice soft but fierce. Then let them circle, we're not moving. Across town, Harris paces in the Union Hall. A messenger rushes in, breathless. Chief Williams just held another meeting with the review board. They're opening investigations into 10 more officers. The people are celebrating like he's some kind of savior. Harris slams the wall with his fist. Then we stop the savior. Tonight we plan, tomorrow we strike. Back at the mansion, Elijah tucks Naomi into bed, his heart heavy. She grips his hand, her eyes shining in the dark. Promise me something, she whispers. Anything. If they come for you, promise me you won't face them alone. Promise me you'll come back to us. Elijah presses his forehead to hers. I promise, but I can't promise it will be easy. Naomi closes her eyes, whispering, just promise it will be worth it. Outside, the city hums with chants and sirens. Candles flicker in the hands of protesters who refuse to go home. Inside, Elijah stares at the ceiling long after Naomi drifts into sleep. He knows the threats are real now. Harris won't stop at words. The fight is no longer just about reform, it's about survival. And Elijah Williams steels himself for the storm about to break. Riverton wakes to another day of unease. The chants of protesters still echo through the downtown streets, but whispers in dark corners are growing louder. The union's anger has shifted from words to dangerous intent. Inside police headquarters, Elijah Williams convenes an emergency meeting with Karen Lopez and Claire Thompson. Files are stacked high on the table, but the conversation is about more than paperwork. Karen's voice is sharp. Chief, the chatter we intercepted last night, it wasn't vague. They're talking about making you an example. Not through politics, through violence. Claire adds, her tone grave, we have enough evidence to move against Harris. His rhetoric has crossed the line into conspiracy. Elijah shakes his head. If we storm the Union Hall now, it'll look like I'm silencing opposition. We need proof they're planning more than words. Karen slams her hand on the table. Words can kill too. Don't underestimate desperate men. Elijah exhales, his shoulders heavy. I know. But if we're going to win this, we win it with truth, not fear. Meanwhile, Naomi spends the morning at a community center, speaking with women who've begun calling themselves Naomi's Circle. They've organized food drives, legal aid, and nightly vigils. Naomi listens as a young mother stands, tears streaming down her cheeks. My husband was arrested 3 years ago. He never came home. They told me it was an accident, but now I wonder. These files give me hope, but I'm scared too. What if they come after us for speaking out? Naomi rises, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. They already came after me. They tried to silence me in the street, but look around you. We're still here. They can threaten us, but they can't erase us. Together, we're stronger than their fear. The room erupts in applause, chants of "We are stronger" shaking the walls. Across town, in the dim light of the Union Hall, Harris paces furiously. His loyalists sit in silence, the weight of his anger pressing down on them. He's turning the city against us, Harris snarls. Every file he releases, every speech he gives, another piece of us dies. If we let him keep going, there won't be a department left. One officer finally speaks, his voice uncertain. But Chief Williams is right. Some of those complaints were real. We can't defend abuse forever. Harris whirls on him, eyes blazing. You sound like them. Maybe you should leave. The officer falls silent, fear written across his face. Later that night, Elijah stands on the balcony of the mansion, the city lights flickering below. Naomi joins him, her hand resting on her belly. You're somewhere far away, she says softly. He shakes his head. Just thinking about how close we are, about how dangerous it's getting. Naomi leans against him. Danger means you're hitting the truth. They wouldn't fight this hard if they weren't scared. He kisses her forehead gently. You always know how to steady me. Suddenly, one of the security officers rushes onto the balcony, his voice urgent. Chief, we've had a breach. Someone tried to cut through the back fence. Naomi gasps, her hand flying to her mouth. Elijah's expression hardens instantly. Did they get through? No, sir. They fled when we responded, but they left this. The officer hands him a crumpled flyer. Across the front, Elijah's face is printed with a red X slashed through it. Scrawled across the bottom are the words, Williams must fall. Naomi grips his arm tightly, her eyes wide with fear. They're coming closer, Elijah. It's not just words anymore. Elijah folds the flyer, his jaw set. Then let them come. We won't break. The next day, Elijah calls another press conference. The crowd is massive. Protesters with candles, families with photos, reporters shoulder to shoulder. He steps to the podium, the flyer clenched in his hand. Last night, he begins, his voice booming, someone tried to break into my home. They left this behind. He holds up the flyer, cameras zooming in. Gasps ripple through the crowd. But hear me clearly. I will not be intimidated. I will not step down. And I will not stop until every voice silenced by corruption is heard. You can threaten me, but you cannot threaten the truth. Because the truth will outlast every bullet, every fist, every lie. The crowd erupts in cheers. Chants of "Truth will outlast," shaking the city square. Naomi watches from the front row, tears streaming down her face. Fear lingers in her heart, but pride swells too. Her husband is not just fighting for her anymore, he's fighting for all of them. Across town, Harris watches the broadcast, rage boiling in his chest. He slams the TV remote against the wall, shattering it. If he wants a war, he'll get one. And in the shadows of Riverton, the storm edges closer. Because the fight is no longer about files or protests. It is about who will survive the reckoning to come. The city of Riverton buzzes with tension, every corner alive with whispers of what might come next. Elijah's defiant press conference has emboldened supporters, but it has also enraged his enemies. Flyers with his face crossed out are found plastered on lampposts. Graffiti on a downtown wall reads, Williams must fall. Inside the governor's mansion, security is doubled. SUVs idle outside, guards patrol the grounds, and checkpoints are set up along the street. Naomi paces the living room, her hand resting protectively on her belly. I hate this, she mutters. I hate living like we're trapped in our own home. Elijah sits on the couch, exhaustion in his eyes. It's temporary. Once the investigations finish, once the truth is out, this will pass. Naomi turns sharply. Will it? Or will they just come harder? You saw the flyer, Elijah. They don't want to fight you in court. They want to erase you. Her words hang heavy in the room. Elijah exhales slowly, then stands and takes her hands. They can try. But I won't let them win. Not against me, not against us. Meanwhile, at police headquarters, Karen Lopez briefs the review board. Chief, we've uncovered more files. There are at least 20 officers implicated in cover-ups. If we announce indictments, the union will explode. Elijah straightens, his voice unwavering. Then let it explode. If we flinch now, all of this, Naomi's suffering, the family's pain, it's all for nothing. Claire Thompson adds, we'll need federal backing. The threats aren't just local anymore. Some national police groups are rallying against you. Elijah nods grimly. Then we make this national. Let the whole country see what happens when silence breaks. That evening, Naomi attends a vigil at the church, surrounded by hundreds of women from Naomi's circle. Candles flicker as they sing hymns, their voices carrying into the night. Naomi speaks softly but firmly. I was struck in the street, carrying life inside me. They wanted me silent, but because of you, I found my voice, and together we cannot be silenced again. The women cheer, lifting their candles high. For a moment, hope feels stronger than fear, but across town, in the dim Union Hall, Paul Harris paces like a caged animal. His loyalists sit tense, listening. He parades around like a hero, Harris spits. Every night he stands in front of cameras, every day he digs deeper into our files. If we don't stop him, there won't be a department left. One officer shifts uneasily. What are you saying? Harris's eyes narrow. I'm saying enough speeches, enough rallies. We end this our way. The implication is clear. No one speaks, but the silence itself is agreement. Back at the mansion, Elijah returns late. Naomi waits on the porch, the glow of candles from the vigil still fresh in her memory. They believe in us, she whispers. Elijah nods, but his voice is heavy. Belief won't stop bullets. She grips his hand tightly. Then we pray bullets never come. The next morning, Riverton wakes to breaking news. Union leaders under investigation. Claire and the review board announce formal inquiries into Harris and his allies, citing evidence of obstruction and conspiracy. The city erupts, protesters cheering in the streets, loyalists screaming betrayal. Elijah addresses the media again, his tone fierce. This is not an attack on law enforcement, it is an attack on corruption. If you wore the badge with honor, you have nothing to fear. If you abused it, your time is over. The crowd roars with approval, chants shaking the square. But in a dark alley nearby, Harris listens on a burner radio, his jaw tight. He mutters to his men, "Tonight we plan, tomorrow we act." That night, Naomi can't sleep. She lies awake beside Elijah, staring at the ceiling. I keep thinking about the baby, she whispers. What kind of world are we bringing them into? Elijah turns toward her, his hand resting on her belly. A better one. Because we're fighting for it now. Because they'll be born into a world where silence no longer wins. Naomi closes her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. Then promise me you'll be here to see it. Elijah presses his forehead to hers. I promise. But outside the mansion, unseen in the shadows, a pair of eyes watches from across the street. A figure lowers binoculars, speaking quietly into a phone. He's home. He's not hiding. We'll be ready. The storm that has been building for weeks is about to break. And Elijah Williams, standing at the center of it all, knows tomorrow may test not just his leadership, but his very life. The city of Riverton feels like a pressure cooker. On the surface, protests remain steady. Vigils, chants, families marching with photos of loved ones. But underneath, a darker current flows. The union is no longer just whispering about retaliation. It is moving in shadows. Inside the governor's mansion, Elijah meets with his security team. Maps and intelligence reports cover the dining table. One officer points to a chart. Chief, surveillance picked up men watching the mansion. We believe they're union loyalists. This isn't just intimidation, they're planning something. Naomi, standing in the doorway, listens with fear etched across her face. You mean they're coming here? To our home? Elijah turns to her, his voice steady but soft. We won't let them. That's why the guards are here. But Naomi shakes her head. You keep saying that, Elijah. But every night the circle gets smaller. They're desperate. Desperate men don't stop at fences. Her words hang in the room like smoke. Meanwhile, at the Union Hall, Harris gathers his men in a closed meeting. The atmosphere is tense, the lights dim. He spreads out photos on the table. Elijah at rallies, Naomi at vigils, the mansion under heavy guard. He thinks the cameras protect him, Harris growls. He thinks standing with his wife makes him untouchable. But cameras can't stop bullets. Guards can't watch every angle. If we strike once, hard enough, he'll crumble. And with him, so will this so-called movement. Some men nod, their faces grim. Others shift uncomfortably. One whispers, "Are we really talking about killing the chief?" Harris slams his fist on the table. "We're talking about survival, ours or his." Back at headquarters, Claire Thompson lays another file in front of Elijah. "Chief, families are flooding us with new complaints since the files went public. But I need to be honest with you. The more cases we open, the more dangerous this gets." Harris and his people see accountability as war. Elijah leans forward, eyes blazing. "Then let them. Because we won't stop. Not now, not ever." Karen Lopez interjects, her tone sharp. "But what about Naomi? About the baby? They're not just targeting you anymore. You can't keep putting them in danger." Elijah's jaw tightens. "I know. And that's why we win this fight quickly. We expose them before they can act." That evening, Elijah and Naomi attend another vigil downtown. Thousands fill the square, candles flickering like stars. Naomi takes the stage, her voice steady though her hands tremble. "They tried to silence me in the street, they tried to humiliate me, but tonight I stand here because all of you refuse to let silence win. This isn't just my fight, it's ours. For every mother, every child, every family who was told their pain didn't matter." The crowd roars, chants of justice for all, rising into the night. Elijah follows, his voice thunderous. "The files we released were just the beginning. Every complaint will be heard. Every voice will matter. And no threat, no matter how dark, will stop us." The square explodes in cheers. But across the street, in the shadows, Harris watches with binoculars. He lowers them slowly, muttering to the man beside him, "Soon. We end this soon." Later that night, back at the mansion, Naomi sits on the porch wrapped in a blanket. Elijah joins her, exhaustion heavy in his steps. She studies his face, every line carved deeper by the fight. "You scare me," she whispers. He frowns. "Why?" "Because you look at danger like it's a challenge, not a threat. Because you walk into fire when I need you here with me." Elijah takes her hand, his voice soft. "I walk into fire so our child won't have to. That's the only reason." Naomi's eyes fill with tears. "Then promise me one thing. Promise me you'll survive it." He presses his forehead to hers. "I promise." But even as he speaks, headlights flash across the street. A black van idles in the shadows before pulling away slowly. The guards outside tense, radios crackling. Elijah notices, his instincts sharpening. He whispers, "They're watching us." Naomi grips his hand tighter. "Then we hold on to each other, no matter what." The city sleeps uneasily, candles still burning in vigil, chants still echoing faintly. But in the darkness, Harris and his men finalize their plan. Tomorrow, Riverton will wake to a reckoning. And Elijah Williams, standing between hope and hate, knows the storm is about to break. The dawn of Riverton's reckoning breaks heavy and quiet, as though the city itself is holding its breath. The mansion is guarded tighter than ever, unmarked SUVs lining the street, troopers stationed on rooftops. Inside, Elijah Williams pulls on his uniform jacket, his face a mask of calm. Naomi watches him from the kitchen doorway, one hand on her belly, the other clutching a mug of tea she hasn't touched. "You feel it too, don't you?" she whispers. Elijah meets her eyes. "Yes, something's coming." Across town in the Union Hall, Paul Harris rallies his dwindling circle. He lays out the plan, his voice sharp with desperation. "We hit him today, at the courthouse. Cameras, protesters, his family, he thinks he's invincible. We show him he's not." Some nod grimly. Others hesitate, fear flickering in their eyes. But Harris doesn't care. "If we don't strike now, it's over for all of us." By mid-morning, the courthouse square is packed. Protesters flood one side, chanting, "Justice for Naomi." Counter-protesters crowd the other, waving signs that read, "Williams must go." The air vibrates with tension, reporters broadcasting live as America watches. Naomi stands near the stage, surrounded by volunteers from Naomi's circle. Her cheek has healed, but her presence radiates strength. Elijah steps to the podium, the crowd erupting in cheers and boos all at once. He raises his hand, his voice booming. "Riverton, today we stand at a crossroads. We have seen the truth. We have exposed corruption. But the fight is not about me. It is about every family who was told their pain didn't matter. That ends now." The protesters cheer wildly, their chants shaking the square. Naomi wipes away tears as she watches him, pride and fear colliding in her chest. Then it happens. From the edge of the counter-protest crowd, a figure pushes forward. Harris. His face is twisted with rage, his hand reaching beneath his jacket. The glint of metal flashes in the sun. Gasps ripple through the square. Cameras swing. Protesters scream. "Elijah!" Naomi cries, her heart lurching. In a split second, Elijah sees the gun raised, its barrel pointing directly at him. But before Harris can fire, officers loyal to Elijah surge forward. Shots crack through the air, chaos exploding. Protesters scatter, shrieking. Reporters dive for cover, cameras rolling as history unfolds live. Harris collapses to the ground, his gun skittering across the pavement. Officers pin him down, wrenching his arms behind his back. His voice is a guttural growl. "You ruined us, Williams! You ruined everything!" Elijah stands tall, chest heaving, but unharmed. His security detail swarms him, but he waves them back, his eyes fixed on Harris. "No," he says loudly so the cameras capture every word. "You ruined yourself, and now justice has come for you." The crowd erupts, protesters cheering, chanting Naomi's name, chanting justice for all. Naomi rushes to Elijah, tears streaming down her face. She grips his hands tightly, whispering, "You promised me you'd come back." He pulls her close, his forehead against hers. And I kept it. By evening, the footage is everywhere. Harris tackled, the gun confiscated, Elijah standing unshaken. News anchors call it the end of an era in Riverton. The files, the trials, the exposure of corruption, all of it culminating in one public reckoning. That night, Elijah addresses the city one last time from the courthouse steps. Naomi stands beside him, her hand in his, her presence a living reminder of why this fight began. Today, Riverton faced its darkest moment, but we stood together. We chose justice over fear, truth over silence. This is not the end. It is the beginning. Every badge will be accountable. Every voice will matter. And no one, no matter their rank or power, will stand above the law. The crowd roars, chants echoing into the night. Families weep with relief. Children wave handmade signs. Candles flicker in every hand. For the first time, Riverton feels alive with hope. Later, at home, Elijah and Naomi sit together on the porch. The city hums with celebration, chants still drifting on the breeze. Naomi leans against him, her voice soft. "Do you hear them? That's the sound of change." Elijah smiles faintly, his arm wrapping around her. "That's the sound of justice finally breathing." She places his hand on her belly. "And it's the world our child will be born into." He looks out at the city, the weight of weeks of struggle finally lifting from his shoulders. For the first time, he allows himself to believe the fight was worth it. Because Riverton has changed, because silence has ended, and because justice at last has prevailed.